On the Prison Professors platform, I frequently speak about the importance of creating these incremental assets that you could use to advocate for yourself. But some people really don't fully grasp what it means. In fact, I got a question that says, well, how can somebody build assets for self-advocacy? They don't fully understand what is an asset. Well, if you're thinking about a mitigation strategy, what you want is to influence the way people in the future are going to see you. You want to figure out, okay, who are those people and what influence will they have in my future? So I created this 10-point response to this question that I got, which is, of course, how can a person build assets for self-advocacy? So let's try and cover that as succinctly as we can in 10 points, beginning with point number 1. The first thing you got to think about is what's going to differentiate you from others. The one thing that you're going to have in common with every single person who's going into the system is everybody wants the same thing. They want the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. The question, though, becomes, why are you worthy? Not as I think about it. I mean, I think we incarcerate more people per capita than any other nation. We incarcerate people who serve sentences for far too long. And for many, prison is just not the right answer. A civil response would be far superior than locking somebody in prison. But it's not me that matters, nor is it your loved one, nor is it your parents or your child. You got to think about the stakeholders and what are they going to be thinking about you? In what ways do you differentiate from everybody else who wants the same thing? So in point 2, I'm going to ask you, well, which stakeholders are going to influence your future? Some people don't even think about that, but it's point number 2 in this question. If you want to get the result, you've got to think about who is judging me, right? Where do they come from? What is their background? To whom is their allegiance? Is it to me? Well, let's start off by thinking about your judge. What are the characters? That's what we're going to talk about point 3 right now. Start in building your mitigation strategy or the assets that you want to build for self-advocacy. Think about your judge. He's probably a former prosecutor of some sort, either in the military as a JAG prosecutor or in the Department of Justice as a prosecutor, or has some experience even in state government as a prosecutor. It's possible the person built a career as a defense attorney. I've known some judges that started their career as public defenders. Some come from academia, but most judges have at least some experience as a prosecutor. What we do know about all judges, and they were all very serious students. They not only went to undergraduate school, but they went to law school, and they built a career around community service. At least they had to do so in order to persuade the Senate Judiciary Committee to advance them as a candidate to be a federal judge. Every federal judge went through the Senate Judiciary Committee, and every federal judge was appointed by a president of the United States. So they had to build a case. Think about their characteristics and think about what are they thinking about every single person that comes before their courtroom, and what is going to be different in your case. You are going to need assets to help you influence that process for every stakeholder, every person that's going to be judging you. And the judge is only one. There's also going to be all of these people who work for the Bureau of Prisons, which I cover in point 4, right? Think about to whom those BOP officials are accountable. Are they accountable to you, to your family? Is that what they're thinking about, that their job is to entail saying, oh my God, look at Michael Santos. He had a 45-year sentence. I'd better be thinking about him. No, they do not think about that. They think about if a federal judge, in fact, in Earning Freedom, I wrote about my first encounter with a team in the United States Penitentiary when I got there. I'd spent my first year in solitary confinement, and by the time I got to the penitentiary, I'd already been incarcerated for a year, but I didn't know anything about prison. It wasn't until I started walking the yard of the pen that I started to hear about how prisons actually operate and what to experience. And I learned that I'm going to have this team meeting and there's going to be staff members that I can influence. I started immediately thinking, oh, wow, I'm going to be able to influence them because I'm a really persuasive person and I'm going to be able to influence where I'm serving my sentence. And by then I'd heard that U.S. penitentiaries, high security prisons, were not the best place to serve time. I'd heard about these things called FCIs, Federal Correctional Institutions, and even camps. And I remember being in my team and asking the officials there, there's a unit manager, a case manager, and a counselor. And after they presented their little assessment of me, and they asked if I had anything to say, I said, yes, I've heard about these federal correctional institutions and camps, and is there anything that I could do to transfer to one of those kinds of prisons? And I'll always remember the unit manager said to me, Mr. Santos, a federal judge sentenced you to 45 years. This is the United States high security United States penitentiary, and this is exactly the kind of place where you need to be serving your time. And this is where you're going to serve your whole sentence. And I remember feeling as though, wow, I really know where I am. I don't know how to self-advocate. I don't know what to do for myself. Don't put yourself in that position. BOP officials are not there to serve you. They're thinking about the citizens of outside of prison. They're thinking about victims of crime. They're thinking about the judge. They're not thinking about you at all. So you're going to need to build a body of assets that you can leverage as you work to self-advocate for yourself. I certainly had not built those assets by the time I was in prison for my first year because I didn't know anything. So make sure that you learn something before you get to prison. But don't limit your thoughts, as I cover in point 5, to people in prison. Also be thinking about the people you're going to meet in society. Who are those people? What do they think of you? I've frequently write about my relationship with Carol, who married me inside of a federal prison. And our relationship began because, as I wrote about in Earning Freedom, because somebody wrote to her, and that prompted her to write to me in federal prison. And when she initially wrote to me, she wrote as a good citizen, right? She wrote as a mother of 2 children. She wrote as somebody who's never broken the law or thought about it. But here I was serving a 45-year sentence. What do you think she thought of me? Wow, what a great person he is? Probably not. By then I'd already been incarcerated for, I think, 15 or 16 years, and I had done a lot so I could overcome the objections. I could advocate for myself and get her to see me as something different, but that's not how it starts. And as I will say, a master of self-advocacy in prison, I persuaded publishers to bring my books to market. I persuaded academics to become mentors of mine. I persuaded successful business leaders to develop relationships with me, all from the inside of a federal prison. But it was because I developed a body of assets that I could use to leverage my pathway to success. And many of those people I influenced to come on my team, they became my advocates. They became my legs and my mouthpiece out in society to advocate on my behalf. And that even included a sitting member of a U.S. attorney who said, oh, I shouldn't be in prison anymore, and did his best to get me out. So there's always a path, but you've got to be thinking about how you can build your own self-advocacy tools. And in point number 6, I ask you to think, what will people you want to think about you? What will people you want to influence think of you? Who are they? Who is it that you want to influence? Is it other people serving time with you in prison? Is their goal to make them think that you could be all that you could be, that you used to be like super successful and you ran something in the world and they should see you? No, those people don't matter to your future. You've got to be thinking about the result that you want to succeed in building. You want the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. And when you come home, you want to make sure that there are opportunities for you to earn an income and succeed so that you're not falling into that pathway that complicates life for so many people who come out of prison. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just go on YouTube and look at the people who've gone through prison, and all they have to talk about is what gang they ran with, or how big a super criminal they were, or a shot caller, or how big their muscles were, or whatever it is. You got to be thinking about success as you define success. For me, it was always saying, I'm going to get out of prison with my dignity intact, with opportunities to prosper and live a life of meaning and relevance. What is it that you want, and who do you want to influence? The more thought you give to that, the better off you're going to be in building your path. So point number 7, why are you a great candidate for relief, right? Think about that at the earliest possible stage. Think about why. Why? Let's just say magically I succeed in all of the work that we are doing in our nonprofit, advocating for work release programs or opportunities for people to earn freedom, as I wrote about in our book, Earning Freedom, Conquering a 45-year prison sentence, right? Think, if I succeed in that, it's not going to be like a get-out-of-jail-free card. Every person's going to have to make a case. And why are you a great candidate for relief? That is the asset you need to build. You need to be thinking about, what assets can I build over time that make me a great candidate for relief? In point number 8, I suggest think about all the different ways that you are differentiating yourself from other people. Right? Every single person in prison wants to get out early, whatever it is, but not everybody wants to prepare so that they are the best candidate to get out early. You want to build a body of work that will help advance you as that candidate, so that everybody that sees you in prison, staff I'm talking about, doesn't object, right? Or maybe you want to apply for clemency, or maybe you want the president to pardon you at some point in the future. You've got to build a body of work that makes it easier for him to do that. Think about the opposition you're going to face, and then figure out, how am I going to overcome it? And once you do overcome it, what's going to happen when you come home? What income opportunities are going to exist in your future? While I was going through prison, I always considered myself to be unemployable. Who's going to hire me? I got sentenced to 45 years in prison when I was 23, and I never really had a job or a career. I spent all my time in prison. I didn't get out of prison till I'm 49. Who's going to give me a meaningful opportunity for income? You know who? No one. I felt that I had to create those opportunities myself, and that's why I had to create a body of assets that would grow over time to put me in a position where I could create my own income streams and build a retirement and build prosperity without relying on the government or anybody else. Because I knew, as a formerly incarcerated person, if the economy changed or there were layoffs, I would be the first one to get cut. So think about how you can create value in the world, and which ways that make you a great candidate for relief. And finally, in point number 10, I will ask you, how are you going to show your incremental growth over time? That's what a body of assets is. It's not static. If you want to show that you are worthy of a second shot in the world, if you don't want to follow the path of so many people who leave prison to live in homeless camps, or unemployed or underemployed, or on the margins of going back to prison, if you want to really come home and be successful and truly crush it so that you are the master of your own future, you've got to be thinking about incremental growth. I'm not talking about what you did before you went to prison. You may be a multimillionaire, billionaire, you may be a successful business guy before, but once you're a felon, you'd better start thinking about, how are you going to crack the code to climb to the next level in your life? I'm filming this video in late March 2025, and just this past week, quite a few people have received executive clemency from President Trump. And some might say it just happened overnight. I don't believe that. Every person who gets clemency is somebody who's worked over a sustained period of time, building a body of incremental assets. In fact, if you look at our board members at prisonprofessors.org, you will see, I think at least 2 people, Jerry Lundergan and Greg Reyes, got pardons from presidents, and other people on our team are on the verge of getting pardons, okay? I believe if you want to change your future, change your life, you got to build a body of assets that will show why you're worthy of relief. I am Michael Santos. I am the founder of Prison Professors. I just want you to know I believe in you, and I want you to be cool.